Okay, welcome back. This is part this is part 3 of the 6.5 Creedmoor hunting ammo load development series. If you watched part 2, I made a huge boo-boo. For some reason, I bought my comparator about 6-7 years ago, something like that, and I didn't have the insert for 264. So I had to order one. Came in the mail today. And like a dummy, I went to put it on, and that little tiny screw that holds the insert in, that thing just fucking walked away on me. I have no idea where it went. So I just threw some masking tape on it, just for comparison's sake, just for now. Sorry for my crude language. It's been Murphy's Law all this week. Yeah, this week just what a pain in the ass. So today's video, we're going to talk about overall length. We're going to show you how to take a overall length gauge with your modified case, thread it on the end, and basically how you would use this inside the rifle. So basically, it'll go in the rifle like this with the bullet in the modified case. It'll go in the rifle like this. You wait, kind of, if you grab it by the red, you just kind of give it a little clink. You hear that? This way you know that the shoulder is as far up against it as it'll go. And then from there you just loosen this little brass knob, and you don't push this rod, but you just slightly wiggle this rod, and it will slowly move itself forward and push the bullet all the way up against the lands. And then from there you can take precise measurements. So upon doing that, I already did all of these. So just a quick recap before we get into the numbers. It's going to be the Barnes LRX 127 grain boat tails, the Nosler E-tips 120 grains, and the Hornady CX 130 grain. Now these are all non-lead. Just a quick recap. I live in California. I basically built this rifle strictly for hunting. This is not going to be a range rifle. I will not be shooting, this rifle every time I go to the range. It's strictly a hunting rifle. It's going to serve about 90% of mine and my wife and son's future hunting needs. So that's where we are with this. Also, if you watched last time, or the last video, you realize I made a huge boo-boo by not having the right insert for the comparator. But I also touched on, let's see if I can get this in frame. Oh, and I ordered a light, by the way, guys, and a holder for my phone for my tripod. So future videos are going to be a lot better, I promise you. But last time I touched on the fact that all of these, or not all of them, I think about 8 bullets out of this whole box of 50 I would consider acceptable. The rest of them, they have these severely bent and offset polymer tips, and it's really hard to tell. But anyways, I ordered all of this stuff from precisionreloading.com. I reached out to them. I just said, hey, I'm having an issue with these Barnes bullets. Is this an issue you guys are aware of? And they said no. And immediately they offered to go ahead and replace them. No questions asked. He said that they were back ordered because they did not have them in stock. I told the gentleman no. I said, don't worry about replacing them. That's not really the reason of my call. I just wanted to see if this is a known issue because I've never had this issue before with any bullets. So I decided to reach out to Barnes directly. They were more than happy to take my phone call. They asked me to take a slew of pictures. They also asked me to take a picture of the box so that way they could see the specific lot number. And they did inform me it is a known issue. They had a couple of bad lots, and I was one of the lucky ones to receive a box from it. Upon getting the pictures, this guy went into this long, drug-out explanation on how it doesn't affect accuracy, and the tip might be skewed a little bit, and that might dock a couple points off of the BC. And they've done extensive Doppler radar testing at the range, and they said that it is 100% cosmetic only. To which I replied to him, I'm totally fine with that. Cosmetically, I don't care. However, I am doing load development, so I haven't physically shot these yet, and I want to give it the best possible chance in comparison to 2 other bullets that I'll be testing. Plus, I also explained to him that I do reload. I've done it for a long time, and when you've been doing this long enough, you have a sense of, or not a sense of, but you kind of hold your stuff to a little bit higher regard than what you would get from the factory. So in this case, I basically told him, like, I'm not exactly willing to settle. If Barnes can help me out, great. If not, I'll use the bullets. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to give it a fair shake. So basically, they're going to send me new bullets, which is cool. I offered to send these ones back. He said, no, go ahead and experiment with them. Do whatever. You can have 50 paperweights or 50 bullets to shoot. It's totally up to you. So I went ahead and got overall length measurements on the 3 that I had randomly pulled originally. So let's go over those numbers real fast. So first thing I did is I numbered each of them because I didn't want to get them confused. So 1, 2, 3 for Barnes, 1, 2, 3 for Nosler, 1, 2, 3 for Hornady. Basically, I weighed them first, and then that was kind of what I was touching on with Murphy's Law. So I use little scales like that, those little pocket scales. I don't use them for powder. I use them to weigh broadheads for my bow and arrows when I cut shafts and things like that. But I also weigh bullets, and not that the bullet weights really matter to me, but I like to see consistency in the box. If I pull 10 random bullets, out of a box, and they're all within plus or minus 0.3 grains, I'm totally happy. If I go in a box of bullets, and I had this experience with 223, I went into a box of bullets one time, and there was such a huge variation there. I mean, out of 10 bullets, I think I had like almost a full grain variation, and that may not matter to some people. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not a competitive shooter, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of proficiency, I wanted to weigh everything. So let's start from the top. I just got overall length measurements first. So bullets 1, 2, 3, and let me see if I can turn my, there we go. Now we're cooking with peanut oil here. So basically, yeah, that focuses like shit, but basically you're within a couple thousandths there for your overall length. You're within 0.1 grain on the 3 bullets that were weighed. And then over here for the Barnes, these are my ogive measurements. So this is the point at which the ogive of the bullet makes contact with the lands of the barrel. That's a pretty big spread. You get a 1.979 and then a 1.980, and then bullet number 3 jumps up 7 thousandths. So that's a big spread. And for the sake of being proficient, again, I am going to do this lot over again once I have the new bullets. Now let's go over to the more impressive stuff, would be the Nosler and the Hornady. So 1.345 for number 1, 1.344 for number 2, and then 1.343 for number 3. About the same as the Barnes as far as overall length. Now, there's a bigger weight discrepancy on the Nosler. You got a difference plus or minus of about 0.2. Again, in my eyes, not a big deal. But for the sake of just comparing these bullets for the video, that's the difference out of a random 3. And then for my ogive, measuring overall length inside the barrel, 2.004, 2.004, and then this last one I had a 1998. Again, it's kind of a big spread in my opinion, but it's better than the Barnes. So now these are the best in my opinion, and this is what I put my money on originally, was the Hornady CX. Now, first glance, the best looking bullets, in my opinion, are the nozzlers, if that's what you're into. I don't care how much, I don't really care what it looks like, so long as it doesn't have a fucked off tip like those. But the best feeling bullet by far is the Hornady. And these look really good. I think the nozzlers look better, but the feel, the overall quality, and again, I mean, I might be touching on just like, apples to apples here. I mean, it doesn't matter, but just straight out of the box, out of a fresh package, they feel phenomenal. They look phenomenal, and their measurements really speak for themselves. They speak volumes about Hornady's quality. 1.488 overall length for number 1, 1.489 for number 2, and then 1.490 for number 3. So a couple thousandths difference between the two. Very good. 130.2 grain for number 1, 130.1 for number 2, and 130.1 for number 3. So a 0.1 grain difference between a random 3. That's excellent. Now we go into the ogive. And this is why I measure multiple times with multiple bullets, and I'll do it over and over and over again, because sometimes you can get a different read. It may not be you, it's the bullets, because they're not always going to have the same exact ogive at the same exact spot. And this is what plays into machining. I don't know the exact process on how they make these, but however they're doing it, they are stellar, and here's why. From my measurements, I got a 1.979 ogive, 1.982, and then I got another 1.979. So this is what I'm talking about. This is within 0.003. So when it comes to load development, this is going to be easier for me to go off of when I first start making, or when I first start loading these rounds. These other ones have a bigger spread. Again, some guys are not going to think that's a big deal. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but when you do your load development, you're not loading to that. You're going to do a setback, right? You need to do a setback. So I'm going to set back 15 to 20 thousandths. That's typically the area that you want to set back at, okay? So if you set back 15 to 20 thousandths based off of a higher measurement, but then your ogive's different on another bullet, you may not be setting that other bullet 15 thousandths back. It may realistically be only 10 thousandths back or 5 thousandths back once you consider the ogive. So that's why these bigger spreads are a bigger deal. Again, not that big of a deal to some people. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'll be able to make do because I can always check these measurements again. But if you've never done this before, this is why we check overall length, and we don't use those kooky methods that other people use with the Sharpies, or, the other one's Loctite. You can take a fired case, get some red Loctite number 271, put a dab on a bullet, stick it in the case, and then you're going to push it down a little bit inside the mouth. Let me just show you the Loctite method. And I don't like the Loctite method, but basically what you would do is you'd have a fired case, you'd put a dab of Loctite on the bullet, you'd stick the bullet in so that way there's only like a little bit of a cone sticking out. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. See, I'm setting up for the overall length gauge. You would do that. You would leave it long. So you'd put a dab of Loctite on it. And I've done it this method before, and it works. I just don't like doing it. But what you'll do is you'll basically chamber this round, and you're going to slowly push your bolt forward. Very slowly push your bolt forward, and then lock the bolt down. And what I do when I do that, I leave it for 24 hours. I want this Loctite to dry and cure. Reason being, sometimes the lands are so sharp in newer rifles, they'll dig in, even though you may not push this thing with an enormous amount of force, they can dig onto that. And, if you don't let this thing sit and dry and cure overnight, you're going to pull this thing out. This thing's going to be lodged in the barrel, and you're going to pull out an empty case, and then you're going to go, well, shit, now I got to get my little rod in there and push the bullet out. And then it's got Loctite on it, and it's messy, and it's a pain in the ass. And I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed, but, you know, just for measurement's sake, I'm going to roll with Hornady, just because I'm really digging these bullets right now. So we're going to do a Hornady bullet. So we're going to put number 3. We're going to put number 3 inside. Now on the on the overall length gauge from Hornady, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, sorry guys, I'm trying to do this one-handed. I'm not an expert at this. You're going to want to push this rod back and then tighten the thumb screw to the point where the bullet is just kind of freely sitting in there with just the tip sticking out. Just the tip. Just the tip. All right, baby. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stick this sumbitch in there. Now, don't hold it by the push rod. You're going to want to hold it by the base. Hold the tip by the base, guys. Now, slowly rock it in, and you'll hear it. You'll hear that? Okay, that's the shoulder making contact at the end. Okay, that's as far forward as that's going to go. Okay. Now what you're going to do, and I'm probably going to fuck this measurement off because I'm doing this one-handed again, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to ever so slightly loosen that thumb screw. Verify that that is pushed forward all the way, which it is, and now you're going to hold the push rod with your finger and your thumb, and you're going to rock it, and you'll slowly start to see it jerk forward a little bit. That's as far as it'll go. Now lock this thing down, and I'm doing this one-handed, so I already bet this is going to be a bunk measurement, but we'll see. And then what I do to make sure that the bullet doesn't stick in there, which it won't, but just, you know, this is good practice. Just go like this and just wiggle, 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 wiggle. How'd you fit all that in them jeans? Slowly slide that back out. And see, this is already wrong because I'm doing this one-handed. So here, we're going to do this one more time. This video is really dragging out, but it's an important video, guys. We need to get this video done because I don't want to do 2 parts, and I'm already at 17 minutes and change. Okay, bump the shoulder, loosen the thumb screw. You're going to wiggle the push rod forward. That's as far as it'll go. Lock that thumb screw down. You're going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. That looks better. That looks a lot better. That looks like a 6.5 Creedmoor round. Now, I'm going to just go like this. I'm going to just brace this thing up. Hopefully I can make that work. I always reset my calipers. And then what you're going to want to do, and don't jerk this around, you're going to want to do this slowly. You need to get the caliper inside of this inset right here, okay? And just slowly use the wheel with your thumb and just slowly push forward. 1.996 and a half. And that was Hornady bullet number 3. 1.979. So I may have rocked that a little too far forward, but this is the reason why I like to do multiple bullets in a box multiple times, and then I write down the data, because it'll give me a better starting point. If I had, for example, let's just call it an even number. Let's just say it was 2 inches even, and then I did one that was 1.997, and then I did another one that was, 1.998. I might just roll with the 2 even, and then do my 20 thousandths setback when I go to develop the load. And that way I know that at least out of those 3, and again, this is if I'm doing these 3 consistently getting those numbers, within like 1 or 2 thousandths. I would just start with the higher one and then set back from there. So, and again, just for the sake of example, if my average came out for that 2, I would just roll with that 2 even, do a 20 thousandths setback, and that's where I would start setting up my dies, or setting up for my overall length, for when I actually go to start seating bullets. And then So yeah, so this is already 20 minutes long. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not boring you guys. I just, I think we're finally getting to the races here where I'm actually getting a little bit, more to the point. So yeah, so these will be here in a couple days. I'll get the new ones, and we got the overall length done, and we just got all these comparisons done. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I need to cover about this? I don't think so. Next video, we're gonna get some brass going. So what I like to do, even with new brass, is I like to just go ahead and like repolish everything. But I'm basically gonna get brass laid out, get it ready. I'm gonna do 10 rounds of each. So I will throw those in the tumbler. I will get them polished up, and then we're gonna check length of the brass. No, they don't need to be trimmed or anything like that. But what I might do is some of the mouths of the case are out of round, so I will be setting up the sizing die. I'm not going to full length size them, but what I am going to do is just kind of just pop them in, just so that way that rod on the inside of the die can go ahead and just re-round that case mouth back out, and then we're going to go ahead and get them primed. That'll be the next video. After that, we're going to go ahead and do powder charge. Then we're going to do bullet seating depth. And then as far as load development, that's pretty much going to be it. We're going to have a range day. I was hoping to make that Saturday. I don't think that's going to happen because, I want to give this a fair shake. So we're going to wait until the new box comes. So I don't know exactly which day I'll make it to the range, but when I do, I'll see which of these is going to group the best. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what about your ladder test? Well, I'm going to load these towards the bottom of, the minimum. I mean, I'm still assessing the load data in the book, and I'm comparing it to this load data that I printed from the manufacturer's websites. So that's the one for Hornady, that's for Barnes, and that's for Nosler. But I'm going to cross-reference it with what Lyman says. I'm going to check it also in a couple other books and just kind of see where that happy medium is going to be. I may not necessarily go all the way to the bottom, but I'm definitely not going to take it all the way up to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load close to the bottom of the threshold for all three, take it to the range, see what groups the best. I'm going to pick that bullet, and I'm going to shoot 3 different strings just so that way I can give each of these a fair comparison. And whichever is more accurate out of 3 separate rounds, or 3 separate strings of shooting, or whatever you want to call them, that's the bullet I'm going to go with, and then I'm going to start my ladder test. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to be shooting it through a chronograph and breaking the barrel in at the same time. So I may do a separate video for that, but that's just my method of madness. That's how I do it. I set up the chronie, I get muzzle velocity while I'm testing loads. It just, it's going to be an all-day event at the range to shoot like a few bullets, man. But that's my method of madness. Check back.